Welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Coral.
And I'm Natalie.
And we're here to help you raise your game whilst raising the next generation.
We want to help put the power in your hands and inspire you to live your life the way you choose. Ready to raise some questions?
Well, so are we. Hello, everybody. Today on the Raise podcast, we're joined by Hannah Canavan. She's a mother of three and a leading voice in the UK's home education space. What started as a personal journey to raise her children more intentionally outside of the mainstream school system has grown into a powerful movement guiding thousands of parents who are curious about homeschooling, autonomy in education, and conscious family living.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a bit more about your journey and why you decided to homeschool?
Sure. So I think the home ed community would want me to say it's home ed, not homeschool. Although in Facebook groups, I always think give people a minute and don't jump down their throats. But we are a home educating family, so we don't really replicate school at home. Mm-hmm. So we can talk about that in a minute. I guess I used to work in behaviour management at a pupil referral unit. So that was for teenagers who had actually been to a pupil referral unit and got expelled or excluded. And so they came to this very small unit where I worked. And it was a really intense job. It was the best job I've ever had. I used to wake up on a Saturday and be really sad that I couldn't go into work. But the kids were obviously very naughty, what you call naughty, criminal. But I noticed that the approach that was used there was extremely respectful. You wouldn't expect, someone to be giving these kids autonomy and choices, but that was what the leaders of this unit did. And it was really eye-opening because they, responded so much better when they were spoken to nicely and with respect, and as if someone cared about them and they weren't just a number. And so that was what really got me thinking, hang on, I don't see this in mainstream education enough. And it's not because teachers don't want to, it's because they don't have the time, the resources, the mental resources. And there are 30 plus children, so you simply can't give that attention to every child. And so then I had Esme, and I was very young. I was 20 when I got pregnant with her. And we looked around a very small school. And I remember thinking, I still don't feel like this is enough for her. It's not individual enough for her. And I want her to have a childhood that works for her really well. We had no money. And so I thought, if we go private, don't think that's really going to be an option. And if it was, it would just be for one child. And I wanted more than one. And so we thought, right, we'll use the nursery stage, ages 2 to 3, as some sort of almost experiment to see how this goes. And my main concern was her having friends, because I thought, especially in primary, the academic side is not too difficult, especially in lower primary. I'd probably struggle around year 4, but we thought we'd give it a go. And then we just found this amazing community. And I remember realising that we had missed the application date for school. We intended to, but I realised I walked into a cafe, went to the bathroom, shut the door, and the date was on the back of the door. No. And I thought, well, that's it then. Like that, and
that's your decision made.
That was done. So, and we've never looked back. I've honestly never regretted it for a second.
So cool.
Yeah, 14 plus years later.
And you travel a lot with the kids, don't you? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So unfortunately, the girls' dad and I separated years back. But before that, we did travel a lot with the girls. So we decided that when they were 6, 5 and 2, we take them backpacking around Asia. Looking back, even when I see people with toddlers in the street now, I think, what was I thinking? That's absolutely insane. And it was objectively completely mad. It was a really, really cool year. We went to Bali, Thailand, Sri Lanka. We ended up loving Bali and staying there. So we did about a year there. And unfortunately, at the end, I don't know if you guys know this, but my middle daughter had a brain injury, traumatic brain injury.
Oh gosh.
So she had an accident at a hotel and fell about 20 feet. And that's when we found out that the healthcare in Bali, unfortunately, wasn't going to be somewhere, something that was robust enough to stay. We had to get back to the UK. We ran out of money and it was just a really, really hard time. So, but since then, she's doing amazing. You'd never know. Which is great.
Must have been so scary.
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes people ask me, how do you deal with, things online or this or that? And I think because I've done the hardest things, that was one of them. And we were so lucky that she was okay. I just don't know how she is okay, but yeah, she's amazing. You'd never know. She's brilliant. So, and then we came back, settled back in, and now we travel in a kind of more normal more normal fashion. But we're very lucky because obviously as home educators, you can travel whenever. So you can go in term time, it's a quarter of the price. It's not as busy, and we love it. We love all kinds of travel. So we're off camping next week to a home educating festival. Just got back from a week around Europe, which was amazing.
I saw that. Where did you go?
We did 2 days. It was whirlwind. It was we wanted to focus on history and art. So World War I and II in France. And then we went to Belgium and did the Ypres Memorial and the battlefields. And then we went to Holland for a couple of days and did Anne Frank Museum, an art museum. Yeah, it was really cool. Wow. Really cool. So lucky. Just, I can't believe I'm saying this. Like,
it's like a history lesson around the world.
Yeah, with a lot of chocolate thrown in. So it was really, really cool. So yeah, we love traveling.
Amazing. Yeah. And what do you think the main reasons are for families choosing to homeschool rather than send their children to mainstream settings?
I think there are so many reasons. I think probably maybe 20, 30 years ago, the landscape looked different. I think that it was very much a philosophy-based decision. You know, maybe they were like hippie people and they wanted to really live off grid, or they wanted to not be part of a system in general. I think now it's very, very different. You know, people are realising that unfortunately the school system is not doing what it set out to do, and that even maybe what it set out to do isn't actually in our kids' best interest anyway. I think the rise of the internet and people sharing information has contributed to that, which I think is a really good thing. But also, you know, people are more aware of their children's individual traits, neurodiversity, mental health issues, and people are now, maybe after COVID, less willing to put up with a life that they're not really happy with and they don't feel is right for their kids. So bullying is another one I hear about all the time.
Bullying, did you say? Okay.
Yeah. In schools, but some obviously heartbreaking stories in DMs and stuff. So yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons. And interestingly, teachers are who I see most frequently pulling their kids out of school now.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. You'd be amazed. Head teachers as well. And I'm seeing an increase in people creating social media accounts. So that's where, you know, you can see these people saying, I'm a head teacher and I've just quit and my kids aren't going. And I do think that's a bit of the canary in the coal mine. Like, people are saying, I worked here, I know the inside of the system, and I'm not having it for my children. So I think those people are good to listen to.
Yeah, 100%. So what advice would you give to a parent who is considering homeschooling for the first time and doesn't know where to start?
My gosh, this is the number one question I get asked. And honestly, it's so hard to answer because it's, you know.
And I guess every situation's different,
100%,
right?
100%. And what I will say is there are so many different approaches to home ed, and yours doesn't have to have a label or a name. And there are probably as many approaches as there are families, because everyone tweaks their own and has their own things that they prioritize. My advice would be to think of it as, when you have a newborn baby, you need to protect your space and your energy and who you're taking advice from, because, you know, everyone and their mum will give you advice, and it's not all necessarily from an educated place or a place that's in your best interest. And so generally I would say take advice from other home educators, because I think people who generally haven't done it don't necessarily have the insight or the understanding to myth bust. You know, they've got probably mistaken beliefs about it. So generally I would say talk to other home educators. If you can meet up with other local home educators, that is a really healthy thing, I would say, because you're going to then see as well the outcome of home ed. You're going to meet other people, you're going to get connections, you're going to see, oh, well, they're doing this, I hadn't thought of that, or, you know, oh, I didn't realise you're allowed to do that, and or that you didn't have to do that. And so also this community is going to give you some confidence that you're not alone. And I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with, you know, that they feel, I'm crazy for doing this. And they might have family or friends saying that to them as well. You know, you're completely mad, you're ruining your kid's life. And these are all thoughts that new home ed parents have, you know, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, I constantly, even now, I still question and I still feel guilt, and it's really difficult.
Do you feel guilt?
Yeah.
About what?
Just whether I'm doing the right thing for my children.
Yeah. I think as soon as you have your kid, that voice is there, isn't it? Like constantly, and even as adults, I can't imagine when they're adult, I'll still be doing it. You know,
it's interesting because I still have that thought. Like, my daughter, as I said, she is in school, and I feel guilty that she's at school because I'd rather her be at home. You know, it's like, I think you all
I just
care
think
about
it's
your
part
child.
of the course.
Yeah.
You know, you have one kid and it comes with a package of guilt, like, no matter what.
Yeah.
I think we always question it. And I do think it's a sign of an engaged parent is that you are always thinking, is this the best thing? Reconsidering if you're presented with new information. You know, if this didn't work for my kids, I wouldn't be doing it. I don't have some weird like attachment to the idea of home education. It just simply is the best option for my kids at this time. And I'm not saying it's a perfect option. I don't think there is a perfect parent, perfect kid, perfect lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's just given the choices, that's the best one at this point.
Yeah. And do you get parents that have children in school that they're looking to home educate? Kind of, I guess that's very different than children just not going to school and kind of asking for advice on what they should do.
Definitely. I'd say actually there's a bigger percentage of home educators have had their children in school. I don't have the stats for that, so don't quote me on it. But I would say that that's generally the way that people go, because there's a big pressure to put children into school. Understandably, it's just what you do. Like getting married and having kids, it's just what you do. And I would say it's actually a hugely brave thing to take your kids out of school, and I feel very lucky, and I sort of got away with not having that decision to make, because you feel like you're ripping your child out of a safe system. It's almost like a safety net. And then they're jumping into this void because they have no idea about home education. And what I'd say is school looks like a safety net, but if you look at it, it's really not. It's not doing the job that we want it to do. And home education is not a void. It's just that you don't know about it yet. So it is scary. It's like a leap of faith into something you don't know. You can't see it until you're in it. So it really is a very, very brave thing to do.
Yeah. And what's your favourite thing about homeschooling?
Oh my gosh. I can't say that it wouldn't have happened if I'd sent my kids to school, but my relationship with the kids, I feel like it's really strong. I feel so like privileged. Even last night, my 14-year-old was having, a 14-year-old little moment. But she'll tell me things and she'll talk and she'll, rant to me, and I'm still a sounding board for her. I am cringe. I'm completely cringe, and but she's still very open with me and wants a friendship, wants a relationship with me. And I love that.
That's so nice.
And her mental health, I'd say there's joint things. The relationship I am able to have with them because of the time that we can spend together, but also their mental health. So I'd actually say that's number one. They've never been told that they're not enough. They need to, change who they are to fit in. And that is just amazing, to know that your kids can just live their lives.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And what's the hardest? Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, even you saying that, I saw elements of Ava slipping away because I had experienced the same relationship as you had with your eldest. And then all of a sudden you see this system digging away at them and their confidence. And it's just so sad to witness.
How did you feel that? Or what did you see?
I felt completely helpless.
Did you?
Because I wanted to be involved and I could see this happening to her, but at the same time I wanted her to have these experiences. Yeah. So then when she made the decision off her own back, I felt I was so happy for her because all of, I feel like I got her back. Yeah. And her sparkle's coming back as well.
Yeah.
So
many parents say that. I've got my kid. Really? I feel like I've got my kid back is the number one thing that I hear from parents who are deregistered. And then the second thing is I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
You can't, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? You can't, but that is always what I hear pretty much from parents who are deregistered. Not saying it's perfect. There are obviously bumps. It can be a very rocky time after you've taken your kid out of school. There's this weird deschooling period that I think everyone goes through. But I mean, I'd be interested to know if you feel is there more social media exposure at school as well? Like, because it's so wrapped up now, isn't it? Because school is a hub where so many things come into play. It's like you can't divide up what's affecting our kids. Mm-hmm. You kind of don't know.
I think for her, she looked at school through rose-tinted glasses, and I think she thought it was going to be like Hogwarts. So I think she had this, she envisioned it being really romantic and fun and exciting, and she actually thought it was really boring. Yeah. And yesterday, because she still does dance where she went to school, so we were doing the same route, and I was asking her if she missed it or anything about it. She said not at all. I missed some of the friends, but she still has relationships with them anyway. But she actually found the learning experience and the lessons so boring.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's understandable, because where do you get your information about school from? Topsy and Tim's first day at school, and it's absolutely magical. Yeah. And, no one gets shouted at, and no one's standing outside, and no one is having a meltdown because, bless them, they're autistic and the classroom is so busy, posters everywhere, noise, there's you can't finish something, the bell goes off, you're done.
Yeah.
Absolutely traumatic for neurodiverse kids.
Yeah.
And it's so unpopular to say that. And I think it's not, for two reasons. One is parents understandably feel helpless and they don't want this to be the truth, the case for their child. But also teachers are like, we're doing our best. And they really are.
Yeah.
You know, they're paying for classroom resources out of their own money and they are laying awake at night worrying about these kids. And it's not they're not their kids, you know? So
but imagine it's like, even we struggle having, say, 2 kids, sometimes like splitting your time and giving enough energy, you know, to those children.
100%.
So imagine as a teacher with 30 children in your class, like how are you going to be able to respond to them?
Absolutely.
And their emotions and their well-being.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, imagine if someone had 30 children. Is anyone going to be like, those kids are 100%, you know, their needs are being met, their education's being met? Of course not.
Yeah. No, and I think that's even when I posted a reel of Ava recently when she gave her opinions on school. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you don't want to paint a picture of the teachers not doing a good job, because I genuinely believe that teachers go into education, the majority go in with the best intentions. For sure. So it's just that they're spread so thinly and the resources just aren't there for them and the support isn't there for them.
Absolutely.
And how are they expected to control 30 children? You know,
this is the other thing that drives me wild. They're given a curriculum to follow, and their number one goal, because of the funding that's attached with it for the school, for the teachers, or you know, whatever, is to get the kids through this curriculum with a certain grade. But then what's happened is you know, understandably, we've learned a lot more about mental health and the way to parent or to, you know, behaviour manage children, and so now they're doing gentle parenting type practices in the schools. But those two things do not go together, because you cannot force a child to do something in a gentle, autonomous way. You can't do that. Those two things are never going to work. And so as much as I am really pleased that restorative practices are coming into schools instead of, you know, punitive discipline, we have got such a long way to go before those two things work well together. Can't see it happening, to be honest.
Just a quick break to talk to you about Happy Mammoth. At Raise, our goal is to help women and mothers to live their best lives, and that's exactly what Happy Mammoth want you to do too.
They are dedicated to helping women take control of their well-being at every stage of their life. Hormones are essential for our overall health and happiness, as they impact everything from our energy levels, sleep, to our mood and our focus. And when they're out of balance, well, life can feel pretty out of balance too, which is why we're excited to share Happy Mammoth's Hormone Harmony with you.
Hormone Harmony isn't just for women going through menopause, it's for anyone experiencing the effects of hormonal changes. We both take Hormone Harmony as part of our daily supplement go-tos and are so impressed with the ingredients and benefits we feel from taking it. They're packed with adaptogens, which are really powerful herbal extracts that help your body manage stress, and it's designed to naturally restore balance and help you feel like yourself again.
You may have actually seen Hormone Harmony on social media already, because women cannot stop raving about how it has transformed their lives. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds.
So whether you're navigating life's transitions into menopause or just looking for hormonal balance, check out Hormone Harmony from Happy Mammoth, because life's too short to let your hormones hold you back.
For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code RAISE at checkout. And what's the hardest thing about homeschooling?
Oh my gosh. Wow. It's really hard to pull apart home ed and parenting. Yeah. Because to me, I kind of say, and it's not probably a very helpful thing to say to people, because people are like, what? But parenting to me, home ed to me is just 24/7 parenting. Because if you think about when you have a baby from 0 to 5, so let's assume, you know, at nursery maybe, but mainly with the parents, you see what that child needs and what they need to adapt and grow. And then you provide those resources or you outsource. And so for me, it is literally the same thing. It's not saying I'm teaching them everything. My God, that would be a nightmare. It's just saying that I am always looking ahead to see what they need and fitting that in the same way that when your toddler was 3 and they started to read, you got them a book, you got them some Play-Doh, you sang songs with them. You just sort of scale that up. I've forgotten the question. I'm really sorry.
What was the hardest?
The hardest thing. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. The hardest thing is juggling it as a single parent while trying to work.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
How do you do that? Or did you?
Yeah, what advice would you give to parents who are going through that? Because I get a lot of messages from people saying I don't have support, whether it be from family or a partner or financial support, and they're really struggling, but they also see that their child is really unhappy.
Yep. Okay, so I would say that you have to accept, and this is one of the hardest things for me as a parent, and it's something that I have battled and I still battle with, you cannot do everything. There is no way you can do everything. My house right now looks a state. I had to walk out this morning. The kitchen's disgusting. And I don't mean it's just messy. There's like food on the side. Like we had to walk out after breakfast because I had to get my kids to their home ed group and then get the train here. And I was working on the train. I was working just before in a cafe. I'll be working on the train on the way home. You know, you cannot do everything, and you have to accept that that doesn't mean that your kid is going to be traumatized. It doesn't mean that your kid is going to turn out thinking I had a big lack. It just means that that's just life. You kind of have to adapt to that. So first of all, take the pressure off yourself to be everything at every single time. The second thing is a more practical one. And if you can find some way to work online, that has freed me up so much. I mean, I have always worked online, thankfully. But obviously, when I split from the dad, it was like, okay, this is me. I have got to make this work in a significant way now. And I can't imagine having to go in to an office or somewhere and trying to juggle that. That would be very difficult unless you have some sort of childcare support. So if you can, try and get something online.
You provide tools, don't you, to assist people and learning courses for people online. So if that is something you're thinking about, then definitely check out Hannah's page.
Thank you. I talk about it more on Instagram, and it's not going to be for everyone. Not everyone wants to be on social media. I get it. But I also think that people forget this is not necessarily my first choice. I would love to be in a people referral unit with those kids, but my kids come first. And so I built my social media, this is something it's not advice necessarily, but if you want to home educate, I think you need to be aware that it's going to come first over everything in your life. Fortunately or unfortunately, you're probably going to have some difficult conversations with friends and family members. That's going to have to be navigated. You're probably going to have to change your work style or your shift patterns or whatever it is. You will have to adjust your finances to accommodate things. You're probably going to spend a lot more time in the car being really bored. I don't know about you. I'm constantly sitting in the car. So many videos are filmed in the car because that's where I am. But I would say that there is no such thing as a perfect childhood or a perfect home education. So if you can see that it's imperfect, that doesn't mean it's not working.
I like that.
Thank you. So we want to delve into something now. The government is putting through a new bill called the Children's Wellbeing Bill. In your own words, what do you think are its main aims?
I can tell you what it's saying its main aims are, and then I could maybe give my opinion on it. Okay, this is a really tricky one to navigate because the rhetoric around this bill, the narrative and what the government have said, and in some ways what I believe that they believe is that this bill will help some children. One way that they think of doing that is to create a register of all the home educating families and to then put more rules and boundaries and restrictions in place, which they have not outlined entirely, which is a very big concern because we kind of don't know particularly what we're looking at. To me, it looks like they're trying to have more control over home educators. And the reason I think that is because they are using cases such as there was a very, very tragic case of a little girl called Sarah Sharif. I don't know if you guys saw it. So this poor girl had been, I should probably put a trigger warning in here. Okay. Like we're going to talk about child abuse. I don't know if you want to cut. This poor kid had been abused her whole life. I think she was 10 when she passed away. She was in school that time. Social services knew about her. Pretty much every agency, hospitals, doctors knew about this situation. They knew what the dad was like. They knew that this child was not safe. So she was going to school this whole time. Teachers were reporting the issue. She was then deregistered. And a few months later, she was killed by her parents, by her dad, I think it was, during a period of time which would have been the summer holidays. So the government is using her name to create the idea that a register is needed of home ed parents and that they need more oversight over home ed parents. Now, where this really falls flat with me is they knew about this child. It's not about seeing her. It's about giving the resources. You know, I want to say where were social services, but I know from experience, having worked in that behaviour unit, that social are equally as stretched as teachers. You know, everyone's blaming everyone. And the real problem is that the resources are not coming from the top. So social actually have too many cases on their plate, too much to look at, too many children to protect. And so for me, the fact that they're using that as the reason really is a big red flag. And it paints home educators in a very bad light, obviously. My big concerns with the bill, with the register, with the idea of obligatory visits, which currently aren't law.
Is that part of the thing that they would do visits?
I don't want to be quoted on it because I'm not 1,000% sure. I think it's a grey area, but it looks like they are heading that way. It would be easier with this bill to put that in. And local authorities already do extra legal things like say, you know, oh, well, this is a form you have to fill out if you're in our local authority. And actually legally that's not the case. So they're already trying to slip in their own rules. So goodness knows what is going to come when this bill comes and they feel like they've got a lot of freedom to basically make stuff up. That's a concern. The reason, you know, a lot of people say online, well, you've got nothing to hide, so why are you concerned about a visit? And I kind of want to scream from the rooftops, I'm so not bothered about a visit. I'm probably in one of the top % of privileged home educators in the UK. There is no way they're going to come into my home and look at my kid's schedule and have any issue with it at all. However, the lack of training for the people, the officers, I think they call them, that would be coming in and doing these visits is very concerning. There's no training on where, you know, neurodiversity training, being trauma informed, to have a look at, you know, what learning actually looks like for a child who is neurodiverse or is traumatized. It's not going to look like sitting down and doing school at home.
This is what I've heard some of the biggest concerns are for neurodiverse families that are struggling with their children and wanting to home educate, and then them having kind of more authority over where they should be if they need a specialised setting and who's to make that decision. I had one message that said that their daughter is in school but really struggling, but she has an EHCP. And they're not allowed to homeschool her. They've said because it's in her EHCP that she should be in school. So now they have to kind of go up against the courts to try and homeschool her. And that's what I think they're kind of worried about long term, what that means for children that are kind of really struggling in school.
I think so. At the moment, the law is that if your child is in a special school, then you do need to apply for consent from the local authority. The legal term is consent, not permission. The nitty gritty of that, I don't know what difference it makes. So at the moment, you do have to apply for consent from the local authority to deregister your child. And I think that there is, it's definitely increasing concern that this would spread out to more groups of children under this bill. There's also a proposal in it that if a child was under, I think it's a section 47, I can't remember, which is where they're sort of under investigation for child protection, they would not be able to deregister. Now the concerns come. That seems reasonable. You know, if I'd heard that
to
and
me,
I had
I'm like, that sounds
totally reasonable. Sounds like maybe Sarah could have been a little bit, you know, buffered there. But the issue comes when you have a controlling ex-partner or your school does a malicious referral to social services.
Of course,
you know, or someone in a misguided way reports you to social services, and your child, let's say you've got a neurodiverse child being bullied in school and they are extremely distressed. You've then got this going on, so you cannot deregister them. They're trapped in that school. I mean, you think of the mental health implications for these children, that is very concerning. And so when, you know, people have said on Facebook, and I do believe it, children will die if this bill comes in. And that is, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I am really worried about that.
Because of their mental health?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you okay?
I'm not worried for my kids.
But you think the impact is so huge that it really is going to impact people in this way?
I'm very worried about it. And the other thing is that these people who are doing the visits, let's say they're racist, let's say they're homophobic, you've got a gay family, you've got a Muslim family, there's nothing to stop that seeping into reports about, you know, it not being a suitable environment. And then that child can be put back into school. And the absolutely galling bit at the end of it is they can be put into a failing school. Doesn't have to be a good school. Could be a failing school. So I don't think people realise the potential implications for this for already vulnerable children. Yeah.
And what are the responses that you're seeing to this? Kind of the same as yours? Are people really worried about this?
I think there's a mixed response. Some home educators, myself included, who've been, doing this for years, we've seen various bills come and go, or, various proposals come and go. And obviously nothing has come into play in a serious way yet. So some people, I think, and I understand this, have got sort of activism fatigue. They're tired of the whole thing. They're tired of fighting. And some people just don't believe it's going to happen because of the resources that would have to go into, obviously, creating a register, having all these officers to do things and all the rest of it. So some people are saying, like, this is not going to happen. You're making a big deal out of it. Then there's other people saying, I don't see what the problem is, really. Just suck it up and have a visit. And, my response would be, yeah, it's fine for you. It's fine for you. It's not fine for other families. And then there's people who are extremely concerned. And I think increasingly, because the government are not doing a good job of maintaining the schools, people are saying, how dare you tell us what to do with our children when you are not providing the safe environment that you said you were going to.
Yeah.
We are taking our kids out because we're safeguarding them from you. It's a mixed response, and I think we've got a way to go.
And I think there's an element as well. I know that I feel that it's just the start of a bigger control situation that we're going to have in this country. Yep. And that's what scares me.
Yeah.
And I know that's why I've said about potentially not wanting to be here, because I do feel like, and a lot of people have been like, oh, it's okay. It's for the safety of the children. But I feel like it's a much bigger. Yeah.
I agree.
So it's being masked as though it's about the children's well-being. Is that kind of what your thoughts are? Or do you think there's a part to play that...
I think Bridget Phillipson honestly believes her own nonsense.
Okay.
I really do. I think she has got her head up her own derriere and she is not listening. She doesn't want to listen. She loves her own sound bites. And she's coming from a very particular perspective where she's got this big play that a lot of people are going to eat up. Oh, free breakfast for children.
Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. Increase the free breakfast for children, which head teachers have already said, we can't afford this. And also they're giving them let's be honest, the food is not great. Okay. And I know that it's better than nothing, but if that resource was put into social structure, support to help families to be able to provide food for their own children, to help deal with mental health or addiction issues or whatever they've got going on, that resource would be so much better than we'll take your kids and we'll feed them. How does that work? How is that good for anyone?
So if this bill, where is it at the minute? Because it hasn't passed yet.
No, it hasn't passed. Okay. It had its, I want to say, second reading. I stopped reading about it a while back, as I think a lot of home educators are having to take breaks from the whole thing. And that's where I got to. Back in, maybe about 4 weeks ago was the last time I read about it, which seems ridiculous for someone who's supposed to be, talking about home education all the time. But this stuff gets exhausting. And if you're worrying about it all the time, we can't really do our job of being present for our kids. And, it does your nervous system not much good to be constantly on edge about it.
And are there any other ways other than the potential visits that it could impact families who are home educating?
The visits are a concern. The definitions of suitable education.
Okay.
How is that going to be measured quantifiably when we don't legally have to do the national curriculum? And schools, by the way, don't legally have to do the national curriculum either. Private schools can do whatever they want. They don't have to do it. People don't know that. I would say there's going to be a big push because it's easier and it's more understandable and it doesn't take much learning. It's going to be easier to say everyone has to do the national curriculum. I'm not saying that's what they will do.
Okay.
I just think that there is a lot more potential for local authorities to say, well, here's the checkbox. This kid should be doing this by X age.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, they're neurodiverse.
So more
doesn't
closer
matter.
Monitoring of what you're teaching your children. Okay.
Even if those children have come out of school not being able to read at age 12, apparently that's just the parents' fault. And they'll put them back into school.
This year, let's say no to microplastics, no to toxins, and yes to clean, healthy hydration, because water matters more than you think.
We're made up of 60% water, so what we drink literally makes us who we are. Enter Win-Win Water, the game changer in pure toxin-free hydration.
Most tap water is full of chemicals, fluoride, metals, hormone disruptors, and even medications. And unfortunately, most bottled water is made from fossil fuel-based plastic, which can leach nanoplastics into the water we drink.
That's where Win-Win Water comes in. Not only are all their bottles 100% plant-based, made from sustainable sugarcane, but their water is locally sourced mineral water that is naturally high in electrolytes and minerals. No need to add anything in, it's just as nature intended, real, live water.
So we're huge advocates for the UK-based water company Win-Win Water. For us, it really is the starting point for health. If you're drinking the best quality water with no toxins, your body will thank you for it. And in this case, the environment will thank you too.
Win-Win Water are currently offering 10% off subscriptions with the code RAISE, so that you can get the best quality water delivered for you and your family directly to your door.
Visit winwinwater.co.uk to find out more.
So what would you say to a parent who's thinking about home educating now and who might feel nervous about this bill?
Sure. I'd say it's completely understandable to be nervous about it. But even if you started home educating 10 years ago, there were always rumblings of more control. And I would say that if you feel that in this moment, home education is going to be better for your child, make that decision. It's always scary and there's always going to be things that, potentially could make it harder. Our situations change all the time, even within families. But I would say it's not something to stop your plans for. So, and the home education community, we are on this. There are petitions, there are protests. There are movements, and it's also an opportunity to come and learn about it and be part of that. So I definitely wouldn't let it put people off.
Thank you. I feel like I didn't know too much about the bill. I knew that there was concerns about it, so I feel like you've really helped kind of,
I hope it hasn't worried you too much.
No, I think it's the opposite actually. I think all it does in me, I know, I'm speaking from my own experiences, it just lights more of a fire inside me to kind of say F you. To the whole system. I already had that anyway, but when I hear more about it, I just think, how dare you?
Yeah, that's how I would sum it up. Yeah. How dare you? Yeah, for sure.
So now we're going to run through some more quick fire, maybe lighthearted,
cool
questions about homeschooling.
Great.
So first of all, what is one myth about homeschooling that you'd like to bust?
That we don't socialise.
Okay.
That is people say, how do your kids socialise? And they're often asking me that when we're at a park and they're running around with that person's kids. And I'm like, just like that. But yeah, we have groups, we have clubs. They have friends from 10 years ago that they see all the time. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
And what's one thing that you wish more people understood about homeschooling?
Oh my God. That you don't have to look like a stereotypical, whatever you think in your head right now listening to this, whatever you think a stereotypical home ed or homeschooler looks like, you don't have to be that. You can literally be anyone and home educate. There's no model home edder. You don't have to fit into a stereotype. It's for everyone.
Okay, one book, podcast or resource that you'd recommend for anyone looking to home educate?
It's really hard to narrow them down.
Yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no, God no.
But you do have a
package,
I do. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I've got thousands of videos up about it on TikTok, some on Instagram. I've got a course that's to give parents confidence when they're home educating. It's not about lessons and things like that. It's just to help support them mentally going through that process. But no, there is a great book. Actually, I would say more relationship-based books, more parenting-based books than anything to do with home ed. Oh. So something like Unconditional Parenting by Alfie Kohn.
Okay.
The Carpenter and the Gardener by Alison Gopnik, those parenting books that talk about how to have a meaningful relationship with your kids. And that I would say that is going to take you way further in home ed than anything to do with academia, honestly.
That makes sense as well. I like that.
What's the biggest change that you would like to see in how homeschooling is perceived in the UK?
I would like people to understand that when we talk about the benefits of home education, we are not saying that school parents are not doing a good job or they're not doing a bad job or that teachers are doing a bad job. We don't mean that. We're just enthusing about something. When I say about how great a carrot cake is, I'm not saying I don't like chocolate cake. But equally, it's okay to criticise the system that obviously has flaws. But yeah, it's not us and them.
Yeah, I think it's like not all people that choose to home educate are anti-school.
Of course.
But they're more like pro-child, aren't they? Yeah. It's like taking ownership of that, their education,
absolutely,
and their well-being.
For sure. And even if you are anti-school, it doesn't mean you're judging what someone else does as a parent. Like, I think people often have this perception that, you know, home educators are looking, I'm like, oh, I can't believe you go to school. Absolutely not. My best friend of 31 years sends her kids to school, and I'm like, yeah, it's totally the right choice for you, 100%.
Yeah.
And I can see why. And, you know, I just think there's the judgment, especially as women, especially as mums, it often comes from what we think.
You did a video a while ago, actually, and I loved it.
Really?
And it was not about the judgment, but it was as though you were asking the questions as though about being home-edited, like asking a child.
Oh, yeah. Where what was it? Flip the script, where I said, like, if people asked school parents questions like they ask home educating parents, it would be so rude.
Yeah.
You know, if I said to someone like, how do you expect your child to get social skills when they're with the same kids every day? And those kids are the same age. Like, how do you think they're going to learn? You know, it's so rude. It's so rude.
Yeah. We get asked so many questions. And even, didn't you do one when you were asking about how they spell, like how to spell something as well? And it's like, you just wouldn't ever ask.
Never ask. This is, you know, we've been fairly lucky in my family that we haven't experienced this much, but we have experienced it a little bit. And that is kids getting tested by random strangers. Yeah. And I just think that's so embarrassing for you. Absolutely, as an adult. And I always just look at the adult and I think, well, you haven't learned very good social skills from school then, have you? Like, no. You know, I'd never do that to a school child, ever.
No.
Because I also know that it doesn't matter if that, whatever I was testing them in, they didn't do well at, it actually doesn't matter. Like, there's probably a million things that they're really good at. And this is something I do love about home education and is such a positive, is that you can build a child's confidence up and self-esteem up so well when you focus on what they're good at. And it doesn't mean you ignore the struggles. It just means that they get this really nice, solid feeling that they are good at something. And I just feel that when you spread it across all the subjects, all the curriculums, everyone aiming for the same grade and the same everything, that can get lost sometimes as to there's not enough emphasis on where the child is really good because they're having to do a lot of different things. So
I found that quite difficult with sorry, I know this has now gone not into quick fire.
Oh, that's good.
Sorry. I know I really, and still struggle in a way with kind of the unlearning of not comparing my children to other children and where they should be at. Yeah. How do you deal with that?
So I think I'm very lucky that my children's friends are home educated children now, because we've been doing it for so long. It's just who's around in the week, you know, rather than anything else. It's just a literal practical thing. Like, who are we going to see? Everyone's at school. So I would say that there's a few things. One is that I'm also very lucky that, you know, like at this home ed camp I go to, there are older children and I get to talk to their parents and I get to talk to them about their experience of taking exams and getting jobs and things. So I do have that insight into how it can work out. I'm not saying it's always perfect for everyone. I'm just saying, you know, it's not like you don't get GCSE at 14 or 15, so everything goes to pot. I also don't care particularly, honestly, if they want to live with me until they're a bit older and not move out 18 for uni, that's fine. Equally, I've always said, I you know, if they want to, I've got one child, my middle one, who I do think will be off at 17 to university. And I will always provide everything that she needs to do that. It's not like, you know, stay with me. In fact, it's kind of the other way. But yeah, I think, what was the question, my love?
I was just saying, how do you deal with like the comparison?
Deal with the comparison? Yeah. I also think that when you're comparing things, you have to compare the whole thing. So that child might be amazing at, I don't know, let's say analysing literature, but they might be a really horrible person, or they might have terrible self-esteem, or they might be awful at art. And it's sad that we've even got to mention that. Like, why are we looking, you know? But I just think it's like people's lives. You know, you can look at one thing and it might be amazing, but the rest of it might be a nightmare.
Yeah. It's just really hard to, I've struggled with the unlearning of where a child should be at.
So but also, in schools, they still have that. Yeah. Like, they still have different levels and sets and children with different reading abilities, and, you know, it still exists. I think
this is so not talked about enough. Yeah. 100%. And actually, so my children's home ed group teacher, she's a qualified primary school teacher, and she said that it is a complete load of nonsense that children all do the same thing at the same time. In a year 6 class, you could have children working at a year 8 or 9 level and children working at year 2 level. So the idea that school somehow makes you all up to par at the same time is absurd.
Also, I found it mad that Ava never went to school, then started secondary school. We had a parents' evening just before she left, and she was up to the same level as all the other children. And I was like, how has she not been through all the same lessons and spent all those hours, and yet she's able to pick up everything? And we don't really focus on the national curriculum, so
it's almost
she's not had to
learn it anyway.
But it's because it's what they say. They go to school to memorize, isn't it? So and that's kind of, it doesn't matter really where you've been before.
No,
it's kind of.
It's like learning to the test and then you forget it after, don't you? You dump it on paper and then you're out of there and you're thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
There's this really cool phrase, I can't remember who said it, but it was that if we gave babies walking and talking lessons, within a few generations, everyone would think that babies needed walking and talking lessons in order to do it, as opposed to just adapting because they literally physically and mentally have to do that to survive. And I do think, I've noticed that particularly with reading, people will argue, there's all different theories about reading. I've seen so many children, not just my own, do it. They have to, to a point have to, unless there's things like dyslexia, obviously. I do think children are hardwired to want to adapt and engage with the world around them, and reading is essential, like talking.
Well, I had the experience with Ava and Sufi. We spoke about this with the Imaginarium teachers. And basically with Ava, I sat down, did all the workbooks, focused a lot on her learning to read. With Sufi, we didn't. And because I'd heard of parents not putting any pressure on their children, I just thought, I just wonder what happens if we don't put any emphasis on her learning to read. And I swear it was as though she woke up and overnight knew how to read.
Creepy almost.
Yeah.
It's really
and reading
weird.
menus and really difficult words, but she just understood.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's honestly bizarre. And this is so interesting to me because unfortunately, because of school, there's so much we're missing about how children do learn to read and how children do learn in general, because we would never think that would happen. And so I want to know, what is that? I had a similar thing. My now 9-year-old, she was about 5. And I've always had this thing with my kids where when they want to get a book from the library, I will let them get it no matter what it is, as long as it's appropriate in terms of like no adult content. So she got this encyclopedia on seals, which was like this. And there was no way she was going to be able to read any of it. She couldn't read at 5. And she sat in bed every night staring at it for ages. And I was just like, how's your book going? And she'd be like, yeah, it's really good. And I said, okay, what's it about? And she just made it up. She was like, oh, seals. And I was like, that's so cool, love it. Just walked out thinking like, am I insane? Like, what's going on with her? Just okay. And then one night she read some of it. And I have no idea to this day how she did that, because she literally just decoded it.
Wow.
And people will be like, oh, that's nonsense. Okay, fine. But I've seen it before with my friends' kids. I had one of my long-term radical unschooling friends, so she really never did anything formal. Her son walked in, he was 8, and he'd picked up a postcard off the doormat and he read it out to her, and she was like, he's just read the whole, it was a birthday invitation actually, read the whole thing out to her, and there's this moment. It's crazy.
But I never sat with her and went through the letters or anything.
It's like this weird club where you're like, oh, your kid did it too.
But then what's that saying about everything we learn? And that's what I find really, fascinating.
I wish we knew more about that.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool.
Okay, if you could sum up the new bill in one word, what would it be?
Misguided.
Okay.
One piece of advice that you would give to your past self when you first started homeschooling?
Get stuff ready the night before.
I still wish I did that.
It's so stressful, and it's always a surprise to us that we have to leave the house. We have the same routine and it's always a stress. So yeah, that would be practical. Seriously, I would say that you will not believe how happy and how well their lives turn out. You will not believe it. Oh. That's what I would say.
Oh, I still emotional.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, what's a common fear parents have about homeschooling, and why shouldn't they worry?
The number one question or fear that I hear or that I get asked is, I'm not smart. I can't teach my kids. I'm not a teacher, or even just I'm not smart. I didn't do well at school. And so the first thing that I would say is, if you didn't do well at school and you come out thinking you're not smart, what did school actually do for you? You went for 12 years and you think you're not smart, really? The second thing is that I would say you're not the person delivering every single bit of information to your child. The world is going to do that. You're going to have outside resources, increasingly so many free resources online. There's some incredible, is it okay to mention a couple of people? Great. So Joyful Maths with Ruth, Theatre of Science, free, literally free, really high quality lessons with genuine teachers. £2 tuition hub, increasingly, basically very cheap or free resources where you can do this stuff. So the fear doesn't need to be there, because you're not the one. It's not all on your shoulders. And what I would also say is that school provides a false sense of security for parents because they have someone to blame when it goes wrong. But ultimately and legally, a parent is always responsible for their child's education. So there's no difference. You're responsible now, you're responsible before. If it goes wrong either way, your parent is, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But it's not an increased responsibility, even though it might feel like it.
And finally, if you could tell the education minister one thing about homeschooling, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
One thing about home education, oh God. I always say, I don't think you understand the quality of education that is happening. You have no idea because it's not in schools. So you have no idea.
Amazing.
That's
honestly,
it.
yeah.
That's the quick fire.
That is it. But yeah, I feel like people are going to take so much away from this conversation. I really do.
I hope it was helpful and not scary.
Is there anything that you want to add?
I just want parents to feel encouraged that they can raise their children to adulthood without school, because that is essentially what we're doing. And I saw this amazing phrase called future faking. And I'd never heard of it before, but apparently... Future faking.
Okay.
And apparently in relationships, it's where like someone's like, oh, Mary, I'll have babies with you, and they have no intention of doing it, right? Or no resources to do it. So it's just this idea that they're presenting a future that's not really ever going to happen. Okay. And I would say that, school is future faking so hard right now. We are in a environment where AI is about to nick all our jobs. Yeah. People are working online. We have a global society. We can move anywhere. And school is still using desks and chairs in a room to teach things that kids can look up in 2 seconds. And I'm not saying that teaching isn't important. Of course, there are times when you need instruction, direction. But the idea that if your kid goes to school, they'll be fine. And if they don't, and if they fail school, they're not, is nonsense. So you can be fine without school.
Totally agree with that. I think somebody was saying how completely irrelevant if your child started school now, how irrelevant what they're learning will be by the time they leave, because of how fast the world is changing.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, Hannah, this has been amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been so fun.
And if people want to find more about you, where can they find you? So
TikTok is where I hang out, and Insta, so Thriving with Hannah on both accounts, and keep an eye on my YouTube channel, which has been sleeping for a while, but I look forward to it. Yeah, I love these in-depth conversations. It's so nice to actually talk it out.
And delve a bit deeper into 100%. It. Yeah. No, we're so grateful for your time today and everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks.